Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sporesight webinar for June. We'll give everyone a few moments to trickle in. The webinar this month probably won't take the entire allotted half hour, so give people a chance to join in. As always, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to post in the chat and we'll answer them throughout the presentation. There also is some dedicated time at the end for questions as well. This is going to be a recorded webinar that we will put on our website, usually within the next day or two. It'll be available in our website. You'll get an email about the recording as well, just in case you have to drop off. Maybe you missed something. You want to revisit something that was discussed, you can look back at all of our webinars on our website. So topic this month is we've got your samples. What happens next? It's a bit of a behind the curtain look at the operations of Sporesight, of our lab, what goes into processing the samples. It's probably a bit of a black box to many of you where you send the samples in and you get a report back, but you don't probably know too much about what happens behind the scenes. So happy to give you a peek behind the curtain today. So I'll jump right in. Our topics here going to be about Sporesight, just a little introduction to us. We always do. We'll talk about our lab, our AI, our report, and then there'll be some time for questions and answers at the end. If you're new to our webinars, my name is Dylan McIntosh. I'm a certified industrial hygienist, the Sporesight product group manager, as well as the director of our laboratory. I need to update this slide because I've been here for now over 3 years. I'm also a PAACB certified spore analyst. So I've done analysis, I've done assessments, I've done all sorts of work related to indoor air quality and mold. Our company is TechSight. Our product is Sporesight. So our company was founded in 2013. We were a technology transfer out of the University of Utah. We're world leaders in machine learning, artificial intelligence, computer vision, digital microscopy. We focus mainly on air, liquid, and smearable diagnostics. That's kind of really where we are positioning ourselves, and we're used by laboratories, pathologists, doctors, and vets, home inspectors, building inspectors, environmental professionals all across the world. We have three main product verticals at TechSight. So our environmental analysis is under the Sporesight name. Human analysis is under our corporate name of TechSight. We have collaboration with Mayo Clinic, and our animal analysis is branded with a partner, Zoetis, as VetScan Imagist. So our laboratory, we are an AIJ MPAT participant, as well as a Texas mold analysis laboratory. We hold a license there. Little fact, they're the only state that requires a license for mold analysis laboratories, which is why they're the only state we have a license in. We have a pending letter of ISO 17025 accreditation. Full accreditation for our laboratory is expected to be coming online this October. So our commitment to inspectors is to provide you guys with a service that can give you a quick and accurate and affordable mold testing solution for you and your clients. We really focus in on providing you with the best report possible in the industry, as well as fast turnaround time. We've recently upped our turnaround time guarantee. We're turning out almost every project same day we receive it. And we are continuing to strive to give you the best service possible. So you've collected the samples. I'm not going to go into how to collect the samples in this webinar. We've got plenty of resources about that. But you've collected your samples. You've delivered them to our lab. What happens next? What happens in between your mailing of the samples and our reporting of the results? So the first step is going to be our sample receiving and sample prep. So first of all, you got to get the samples to us one way or another. We've recently upped our return labels to overnight standard instead of second day. So you could use our provided labels at an additional charge. You could use your own shipping method. You could even drop them off if you're local to our laboratory. We have a drop box for after hours, as well as staff at the laboratory that can receive those samples if you drop them off. So the very first thing that's done is data entry. The information that you send to us has to get put into our system one way or another. So if you've used our app, that data is already populated into our system. So we just need to check them in, confirm that what you've said you were sending us, we've received. If you haven't, then we need to put that data from that chain of custody form into our system. After those steps have been done, a notification email is sent out saying that we've received those samples. The next step is the sample prep portion. Prepping these samples is actually pretty straightforward. So depending on what you are sending us, you're sending us air samples, we mount the sample slide in those cassettes onto a glass slide. If you're sending us a swab, we prep the swab onto a glass slide. And if you're sending us surface sample slides, those tape slides, we can prep directly onto those plastic slides. The first thing that's done is identification barcodes are added to those slides to make sure we can keep organized in the lab. Once we open the casing or what you ship us those samples in, it's very easy for things to get mixed up. The barcodes and serial numbers are only on the outside of those objects. So when they're open up and on a table, they look identical. So we have to take care to make sure that these objects are trackable and traceable through our lab. So we affix barcodes to them. We apply a stain. We use a cotton blue stain. It's used to help increase contrast and help color some objects on the slide to differentiate from the background. We have a proprietary cover slip, and that helps us in scanning. So this cover slip that has proprietary fiducial markings that helps our scanners acquire a good image is applied to the top, creates a little sandwich between the cover slip and the slide that is below, with your sample material in between. Those prepared slides are then loaded into scanning cassettes or trays. Depending on the type of scanner we're going to use, it has a little bit different of a way to load it up. So we basically just get them ready for scanning at that point, which brings us to our next section, the digital scanning. Of the things that we do, the scanning part is probably the hardest part, actually, because it can be difficult to acquire a good, consistent focus and image quality. These scanners we use are very expensive and very delicate pieces of machinery that have sub-micron precision in some instances. So they're very precise. So we use whole slide scanners to acquire a high resolution photograph of the sample surface. And for the most part, these samples are about 15 millimeters wide by about 5 millimeters tall. So it's a very small section. And the image that we collect of that surface can be about a gigabyte in size, which is very large. There's a lot of pixel data that we collect. It's a very high resolution image, and that's required for our AI, our algorithm, our computer vision model to be effective. So we have to collect a very high resolution image. Those proprietary cover slips really are key in helping our scanner know how and where to focus. These mold spores are very small, and some air samples can be very lightly deposited. So when there's not a lot of objects the scanner can have a hard time finding it. These scanners are they were mainly devised to find uh, relatively large objects, things like tissue samples. So um, things that are very easy to see. You can see with the naked eye, but the microscopic scanner is to get even closer. But these mold samples are very sparse relative to other things. So we have to use these special cover slips to acquire that image. Once we have an image, we then send it um, to our servers to then process with our AI. And AI is only one part of it. It's actually a analyst AI assisted analysis. So the AI doesn't do all of the analysis. What it does is it makes predictions, and then those predictions are presented to a human, a trained analyst, to then review, correct, and approve. So our analysts work at a computer screen. Um, the computer vision algorithm, it runs on the entire image that is acquired by the scanner. Takes a few moments to do that processing, and then it returns back these objects for review to the analyst on a screen, just like you see in that picture, where the type of object and the picture of the object is presented, and the analyst can make corrections if needed, reclassify misidentified objects, can also clear out false positive, just completely missed objects, things like that. The analyst is also going to, at this stage, select the images that you see in the report. So our report is very unique in the industry because we have the ability to present you with images from your slide. So we show images of the entire sample trace. We show images of a at magnification field of view, as well as individual object images. And it's really great to be able to say, our report shows that there was Stachybotrys spores, and here's what they actually look like. Here are the spores that were found on that slide. And the analyst decides which objects to include in the report. And this is a huge improvement to the analyst workflow. Traditionally, analysts are hunched over a microscope, looking into the ocular lens of the microscope and doing these counts. And they are starting at 0 and moving up. So this process makes a huge time savings. It cuts the time it takes for an analyst to process a slide by about 4 times faster for an analyst to do it this way. It's a more thorough analysis because we are processing the entire slide. In the industry, in most environmental labs, your analyst who's doing a manual review is only looking at maybe 20 to 40% of that slide and then extrapolating the data out because it would take too much time for it to be an economical test. So the standard practice in the industry is a partial review with extrapolated data. We do the entire 100% sample trace, which just provides a more thorough analysis. And there's ergonomic improvements because our analysts aren't looking at these slides in a microscope, which can be very taxing work. It's very fatiguing on the eyes to stare into a bright microscope all day. Usually the seating position and other things aren't quite as ergonomic as you'd want it. When you can take the analyst away from the microscope and add a computer screen, it's much better for their quality of work. And it's when you have a happy analyst, you're going to get more predictable and more dependable results. So after the analyst is done reviewing, we do, I should say, report creation and delivery, because we got to create the report before we can deliver the report. There's behind the scenes after the analyst is done with the review, there's calculations that are run to give you your reported numbers. Now, the reported numbers aren't just a translation of the analyst found 5 spores of this type, so 5 get shown on the report. There's calculations that are done to calculate the objects in a per cubic meter result. So it takes into consideration the number of objects found, the flow rate of the pump that was used, and the sampling duration. So the sample volume that was collected on air samples. The images from the samples are selected and compiled, put into the report. And then there's the billing step. And once that is done, the report and invoice emails are sent to you. So, like I said, this was going to be a pretty quick webinar. We wanted to get you a little peek behind the curtain. I made a joke earlier today saying this is kind of like the summer vacation webinar. Um, we we knew it was going to run a little short. We knew we weren't going to have as high attendance as other webinars, so we wanted to make it brief but interesting for you. So that's the end of the actual content. If you hadn't seen already, we are now offering same-day turnaround time on reports for samples that are received in our lab by 1 p.m. Mountain Time. So if those are in our lab by 1 p.m. local time, we turn those out same day. And now we have changed our return shipping labels that we send out to you. It's now standard overnight shipping. We've shifted from FedEx to UPS to make that possible. There's a slight price increase, not too much. It's $31.99 for overnight return, and it's morning overnight, so we get those by 10 or 10:30 every day in the lab. So if you use our labels, it'll be overnight shipping, and then you'll get same day report delivery on those results. So I'll jump to questions and answers, and feel free if there's any questions in the chat to post questions. And so I've got some questions here. Rick asked, what parts of your process are different from other mold labs that I've used in the past? The process for analysis is totally unique. There's not really any other labs that are utilizing computer vision, artificial intelligence software to process or pre-process the analysis. The way that we do it is totally unique. The way that most labs do it, as I said, the human is looking through the microscope and they're identifying and counting objects. They're doing a subset of that sample trace. They're not looking at the entire sample. And then they're extrapolating the data out. So where ours, we're reviewing the entire sample trace. And the way our analyst works is actually we start at a high level. They parse through and reduce down the objects because we tune our algorithm. We want to show, we value what's called recall, where we want to show our analysts more objects than we realistically expect to be true positives, so they can filter through and find the most good objects possible. So we're starting at a high level and filtering through and coming down to the reported results, where another analyst would be starting at 0 and building up and then extrapolating data out. Don asks, how would you suggest we explain this method to homeowners so that they see the benefits? It's a great question. It's not likely a homeowner is really going to know heads or tails of environmental testing. And if they do, you've got a good conversation to have with them to talk through. The main thing that would be a selling point for this over the traditional method is that full 100% trace analysis every time. I think everyone can understand if you're only looking at 30 to 40% of the sample trace and then assuming that to be consistent throughout the rest and extrapolating the data out, it's not quite as precise as actually looking at the entire sample trace. And then the other thing is just for what our service offers as far as cost, turnaround time, and with our novel technology, it's a combination that can't really even be matched by any other laboratory. So you're getting superior product at a very competitive price rate at about the fastest we can get it back to you realistically. If you get a report to us or samples to us at 1 p.m., you're going to get that by the end of the evening. That's equating to like a 6-hour turnaround time. And if you were to call up a national-wide lab and ask them what their 6-hour turnaround time would be on spore trap samples, it would it would be multiples of what we charge. Mike asks, why do other labs only look at 30 to 40%? So it's a great question, and it comes down to the economics of this test. It takes an analyst, on average, about 25 minutes to process a sample the manual way at 30%. If they had to take 45 minutes to an hour to read every sample, the cost for that test would probably be 2 to 3 times the price that they offer. And it just wouldn't be an economical test. It that cost benefit analysis just really wouldn't make sense to a lot of cases. So the main thing is to make it an economical test for them, they have to read less. There are some labs that do an optional 100% read. You can request it. They might charge you extra. It'll take extra time. And even then, there's rules that they have where they may not read 100% because they've had too many or too few objects. So it all comes down to how long it takes to process those samples, and that's why it's done. It's a compromise. Mike asked, are there different reports that are used? The last reports I received were different than previous reports. No, our report has unchanged for the past year and a half or so. We haven't made any changes except for minor things like updating copyright dates and logos and things like that. The most likely reason why that may have happened is if you didn't send us an outdoor air sample, that's going to make your report look different because we can't process and show you an interpretation of the results with those summary pages and the graphs. Those are not possible if you don't send us an outdoor air sample. And the most of the time we get a question like that, it's because an outdoor air sample wasn't submitted. Or it could be that you did send one and there was a mistake that it wasn't registered as an outdoor air sample, and we can make that right and fix that mistake and reprocess the report. Or maybe you had never seen a surface sample report before. Those do look a little different, but they're the same report we've pretty much always offered. If you have a specific question, you can reach out and send us an email or give us a phone call, and we can look into the exact reason why your report looked different. I've got an off-topic question, it appears, from Andy, who asked, is there a measurement for toxins found in the air that Sporesight provides, such as volatile organic compounds? No, to do that type of test, you need a chemical analysis. You don't use a microscope to identify things like VOCs or airborne toxins, whether that be mycotoxins, endotoxins, other toxic vapors or gases. That requires chemical analysis and specific chemical analysis at that, and those can be very expensive. The technology that or the media that's used is completely different than spore trap cassettes, and is not something that we provide results for. There are labs that are out there that provide those services, but it's fundamentally different than what we're doing here at Sporesight. And then it looks like another off-topic question. This is a great webinar to get some of these off-topic questions. Not a problem. As a home inspector without any professional mold inspection certifications, what recommendations should I make to my client if the report shows elevated levels of problematic mold? Recommend further evaluation by a qualified mold specialist? That's exactly right. Similar to your recommendations when deficiencies are found in, say, electrical systems, plumbing, the structure of the home, you're not looked to find the solution. You're looked to find a recommendation of how they can get to that solution. So, if there's issues with the plumbing, you refer them to a licensed plumber. If there's an issue with the electrical work, you refer them to an electrician. If there's issues with air quality or mold, whether that be airborne or surface mold, you should refer them to professional mold specialists, whether that be remediation specialists to fix the problems, environmental consultants if it's not clear what's causing the problem, or if the results may be inconclusive and they want further information, those sorts of things, yeah, you would recommend further evaluation by that industry. Most likely, either an environmental consultant who does more detailed or thorough testing, or a mold remediator who can come in, resolve the moisture, resolve the mold growth. I think that's the last question that I see here. Maybe another minute or two, maybe not a minute, maybe 30 seconds or so, and see if another question trickles in. As always, you can reach out to us, send us a line, sales@sporesight.com to get in touch with an account rep, as well as our website. We have a contact us form on our website. We have a phone number as well if you'd rather give us a call and get some more information. As always, this webinar is being recorded and we will send it out in an email as well as post it onto our website for you to look back at in the future, as well as every other webinar we've ever done. You can look at them on our website. If you're a new inspector, there's a lot of good information in our Pro Resources page, including those webinars, blog posts, field guides, etc. So looks like that's the last of our questions. We'll wrap it up a few moments early today. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar next month in July. So have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.